All right, looks like the recording has started. So hello everyone and welcome to our training today. Today's training is Get Started with Microsoft Power BI Desktop. Since it is the desktop version of Power BI, we do consider this a level 200 training. So we are currently in a Teams meeting. So for the duration of today's training, anytime throughout the training, if you have any questions, definitely let us know in the meeting chat. I do have my moderators here in the meeting, and they will be answering those throughout today's training. At the end, we will have a section for Q&A as well. So if you don't ask your question in the chat and you would like to ask it live, at the end of the training, we would ask you to raise your hand using the reactions, and we'll call on you and we'll allow your microphone to be unmuted. Here is our agenda for today. We're going to help you understand the building blocks of Power BI Desktop. We'll then explore the data prep capabilities of Power Query, write formulas and model your data, begin visualizing your data and formatting a report, and then how to save and publish a report to the Power BI service. Now, before we begin, we'll go ahead and stay in the PowerPoint just for a little bit, cover some slides. If you're here for Power BI 100, these slides are going to be very similar. So it's going to be more of a little refresh. So what exactly is Power BI? Power BI is a business analytics service that delivers insights for analyzing data. You can then share those insights through what we call data visualizations, which make up reports and dashboards to enable fast, informed decisions. With Power BI, you can get the data insights you need right inside Office tools you use every day without having to change applications. So in Excel, today users can analyze their data in Excel using a live connected experience to Power BI. In Excel, you can view certified and promoted datasets that have been shared with you throughout your organization. We also have SharePoint Online. So many teams and organizations use lists in SharePoint Online to store data. To help users easily visualize their list data, you can automatically generate Power BI visuals with a single click. And Power BI service in Microsoft Teams. So a guided experience in the Power BI service in Microsoft Teams allows users to type or paste data and instantly get an auto-generated report that they can start slicing and dicing to find insights. Power BI is part of what we like to call the Microsoft Power Platform. So it's these four applications: Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents. And these applications are all low to no code applications. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the parts of Power BI. So first we have the Power BI desktop. So the Windows Power BI desktop app enables you to create rich interactive reports. We like to call it the PowerPoint for data like experience that can then be published to the Power BI service. And this is what we will be focusing on today in our training. We then have the Power BI service, which is going to be the web version of Power BI. We also call it a software as a service application that runs on the web. While it is commonly used to consume the reports that are built in the desktop application, you can also create your own reports on the Power BI service as well. Lastly, we have the Power BI mobile. So this is the mobile apps that are available for iOS and Android. for end users to monitor reports no matter their location. Next, we're going to talk about some of the building blocks of Power BI Desktop. So first we have dataset. So dataset is a collection of data that is imported or connected to directly. We then have model. So when you're getting the data you've connected to ready for analysis, this includes creating relationships between tables and creating measures. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the training. And then we have our report. So this is going to be one or more pages of visualizations, graphics, and text. All right. And with that, we are ready for our live demonstration. Let me end the PowerPoint here and open up my Power BI desktop application. So this is what the symbol looks like for the Power BI desktop application. You can download it from the Microsoft Store, the little shopping bag. You can download it from there by searching Power BI, and you can download the Power BI desktop application. It's free. Or if you are using the Power BI web version, so this is what the Power BI web version looks like. In the top right, you have your ellipses, and then you have download, and you can download Power BI desktop from here as well. Now, if you already have the Power BI desktop downloaded, or you're downloading it right now, you will be able to follow along today's training because we are going to be using sample data. Now, when you first open up Power BI Desktop, it's going to look very similar to this. It actually might ask you to sign in with your email and your password. And then every time you open it up, it'll look like this. You have a little startup screen. If you don't want to see this, you can just click on the arrow on the bottom so it no longer shows it anymore. For now, we're just going to click on the X in the top right so we get to our main screen here. Now, one of the first things that you may notice in Power BI Desktop is that it has a familiar design. Just like the ribbon in our Office applications, we have a very similar ribbon function here inside of Power BI Desktop. Of course, the only difference is going to be all the items inside the tabs are going to be different because they're going to pertain directly to this Power BI Desktop application. But at the top, we can see here we have our Home tab, we have Insert, Modeling, View, and even Help. Now here inside of Help, we have some guided learning that you can go through. We also have some training videos that you can watch as well. So after today's training, if you want to learn a little bit more, we definitely recommend the guided learning and the training videos that you can access directly here in the Help tab of the Power BI desktop application. So now that we went through some of the basic navigation here, we're now going to review how to get data inside of our Power BI desktop and what are some of the most common data sources. So here on the Home tab, we can see we have a data section. So here we have Excel Workbook, Data Hub, which you can click on the arrows to open it. So here we have Power BI datasets. We have SQL Server. If we want to maybe copy and paste our data, we can do so in here. We also have the Get Data tab, where here we have some more common data sources. We can even click More, and we'll give it a second to load here. So here we have More. And if you were to click Get Data from another source, right over here, it's going to open up the same window. Now, when we open up this window here, you're going to see there's hundreds of data sources that you can connect here. So by default, it will open in all. and you can just scroll through to find the data source you're looking for. If you want to filter it a little bit further, you can go to File or Database, Power Platform. You can even search for the file that you're looking for. For now, we're going to hit Cancel. And we're going to start by importing our sample data and then going ahead and editing some of that data before using it in our report. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to click on Try a Sample Data Set. So if you are following along, this is what we're going to do. We're going to click Try a Sample Data Set. And then we're going to click Load Sample Data. So now we're getting to see what this data is. So we can see that the name of this file is called Financial Sample. We can see that this is an Excel file. And we can see that there are 2 sheets on this Excel file. If you had more sheets and more tables inside of that Excel spreadsheet or workbook, you would see them listed here as well. But this one only has the 1 table. And when we click on it, we can see what that table looks like. So this is exactly how it would look inside of Excel as well. So now we get a little preview of what this data looks like. Now, while we're looking at this data, maybe we can see that there's a couple items in here that we need to change and edit. So before clicking on Load, what we want to do is we want to click on Transform Data. So let's click on Transform Data to open up our Power Query Editor. All right. So now this is where we can start shaping our data to get it into a useful state for our analysis here. So we're first going to show you how to change data types. So we're going to start by setting the correct data type for our units sold. So we can see in our units sold that we have a fraction of numbers here. So this doesn't really make sense for our units sold. So what we want to do is we actually want to make this into whole numbers. So to do this, there's actually multiple ways to do it. The first way is make sure you're on the Home tab. Navigate to where it says Transform. At the top, we have Data Type, and we're going to switch this from decimal number to whole number. And then once this menu pops up, we want to click Replace Current. So now we can see those decimals are now gone, and these are whole numbers. Another way we could have done this is at the top where it says units sold, to the left we have a little symbol. We can click on that symbol and we can easily switch it from here as well. Next, we're going to go into our segment column, and we want to make these values a little bit more pronounced. So to do this, we're going to go to our Transform tab at the top. Under Text column, we have Format, and let's switch it to uppercase. So now everything in this column is now uppercase and now more pronounced. Another way we could have done this is by right-clicking on the column and going to Transform and switching it here. You can also see we can change the type from here as well. And the more you use this, the more you'll see there's multiple ways to do the same thing here. So next we're going to rename a column. So let's actually scroll to the right here. And we can see we have a column called month name. So maybe we don't need this to be called month name. We just want to call it month. So we can right click and we can click rename, or we can double click and just delete the name part and then click anywhere outside and it has now been renamed. Next, we're going to filter some data. So let's go back to the beginning of our data here. And here we have our product column. So this is going to show us all of the products that we're looking into. But maybe one of the products that we have are actually discontinued and we don't want Power BI to report on any of this data. So what we can do is we can click on the drop down to the right of product, and the Montana product is no longer available, it's discontinued. We don't want to report on this product anymore. So we just uncheck it, click OK, and it has now gone from our list. Now, you might notice on the right-hand side here, we have our query settings. So if this does not pop up for you, you can go into the View tab, and here are query settings here on the left-hand side. Also, if you're looking for any of these columns, like the column distribution or the quality or anything like that, that's going to be under Data Preview. And you can check these boxes if you like to see a visualization. But here in the query settings on the right, we can see all of the steps that we have changed or done here within our data. And if you want to actually delete one of your steps, all you have to do is click on the X and it'll actually remove that step that you did. So if I go back here to change type, it'll let me know what changed, and I can click on the red X to delete it. So that's more like your undo. Maybe you messed up or did something incorrect. You can just click on that little red X and it'll remove that step entirely. When we're done verifying everything looks good to go. We can just go back into the Home tab and click Close and Apply. And now we will give it a minute to load. All right. So now our data has been loaded into our report here. On the right-hand side, we have our fields pane, and then we have our financials table. So that is that table that we were just looking at. And here are those column names that we were just looking at previously inside of that Power Query editor. And the data that is inside of those columns are located inside of each one of these items here. And this is what we will be using to build our reports. But before we do that, we actually want to go ahead and enrich our data set by writing some formulas and connecting a new table. So to do this, we're going to go into our modeling tab at the top here. We have our relationships. So this is for connecting our data tables to our lookup tables to help us filter the results within our reports. We have our calculations. So we have new measures to analyze our data. Quick measures, maybe we want to drag and drop columns to write a common formula. We even create a new table. So you see here we have financials. We can create a new table if we like. We also have security. So this is where we can make sure that only certain people see certain results within our data. We then have our Q&A. So this is where we can integrate the business terms and acronyms used throughout your organization to get answers by typing in questions and having Power BI visualize an answer. So first, we're actually going to create a new measure here. And what we want to do is we want to get the total sum for units sold. So we can see by clicking on new measure that a new measure has been added here called measure. We can rename this. So let's delete measure here. And we want to call this total units sold. The equal sign is already here. And just like in Excel, when you're trying to get the sum of anything, we're going to start our formula with sum. We're going to put our parentheses. And we can see as we're typing, it's automatically filling in some items for us. So we can see it's already looking at the financials table that we have here. And in here, we actually want the sum of the financials of the units sold. So we can just scroll down and find it here. We don't need to type it fully out. We can click on it, close our parentheses, and we can now see that our formula has been completed. And we are now going to get the sum of our units sold here. And the measure is going to be called total units sold. When we're done, we can just click the check mark. And we can see on the right-hand side that we now have that new measure of the total units sold. All right. So now we're going to create a new table. So we want to create a new table of all the unique dates found in a range of our financials table date column. So sometimes it's actually really good to create your own separate table just for dates instead of having your dates inside of your original table. So we're going to show you how to do that. So we're going to go into modeling and we're going to create new table. We're going to change the name from table and we're going to call it calendar. And this is going to be very, very simple. All we have to do is type in calendar and it's going to be calendar auto. Calendar auto is going to go ahead and search all of our data and all the dates that it finds. It's going to put it into this calendar. So calendar auto is going to be your best friend when you're creating a new table for calendar. We're going to click the check mark and we can now see that we have a new table here called calendar and then we have our date right in here. So now what we're going to do with our calendar table selected, we're actually going to go into our left-hand side here and we have a data view. So now we get to see all of the data that is attached to this calendar table. Now in here, if you wanted to, you can create new columns. Let's say you wanted to have a specific column for year, month, and even day. You can go ahead and do that here. For today's example, we're not going to do that, but if you wanted to, you definitely could. Right here, where you create those new columns. Now we're also going to go to our third option, which is the modeling here. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a connection between the date in the financials table and the date in our calendar table. So all we have to do is click this and drag it over to our date here. And we can now see it has created a relationship between our two date items here. And to avoid any confusion, we can actually hide that other date. So now we created the relationship and we hid the other date. We can go back to our report. And now under our financials table, the date is gone because we are hiding it. So we now know to use this date option. All right, so now we're ready to go ahead and start building our report. Before we do that, we're going to go into our Insert tab. And here we have our pages. So this is where you can think of this as like a sheet in a workbook. You can go ahead and create new pages for your report. You can also click on the plus right down here as well. We have visuals. So this is where you can add even more options from our library of custom visuals. We have our AI visuals, where we can leverage artificial intelligence to unlock insights in our data in the click of a button. Power Platform, to automate or take action with our data using Power Automate and even Power Apps. And we even have our elements. So this includes shape, which is very similar to what you would find in PowerPoint. Now, under more visuals, we have the option from App Source. So this is going to give you that complete list of all the custom visuals that you can add to your report. So you can come in here and view other visuals that have been created, and you can actually use these inside of your reports as well. All right, so we'll close out of that. And now let's start building out our report. So the first item we want to add to our report is a text box so we can add a title to our report. So under that Insert tab, like where we're at previously, we'll click on Text Box. And we're going to name our report Executive Summary and they even have spell check. But we'll just go ahead and fix this. There we are, Executive Summary, and we're going to call it Finance Report. Now what we can also do is we can select this, we can make this bigger, we can bold it as well. I'm just going to hide this pane here because we're not going to be using that today. And then what we can do is we can actually click and drag this. Maybe we want it to be just like that. There we are. So now we have the title for our report, Executive Summary Finance Report. So now let's create a chart to visualize our profit by date. So we're going to go into our fields pane on the right-hand side. We're going to take our profit and we're going to drag it right onto our report. And we can see we now have a profit visual showing up right here, and it is using the clustered column chart visual. We can see which visual is being used because it is grayed out over here, and if we hover over it, it'll let us know the name of it. Now let's go ahead and drag the date into this as well. And by default, it's letting us know profit by year. Now, maybe we want to see a little bit more information. We want to see a profit by date, just the date itself. In our visualizations pane here, we have date. We can click on the arrow, and we can actually switch this from our date hierarchy to just date. So now we are seeing profit by date. So now it looks a little bit better here, and we're able to view some more data. Now, for this information, maybe the clustered column chart isn't the best choice for comparison here. So we can actually, while it's selected, so make sure we have this selected, we can go back into our visuals and switch this to a line chart. So now we can visualize our data a little bit better. And while we're visualizing our data, we can see that there's a big dip right over here towards the end of our data. And what we can do is we can actually right click at the end of this dip, and we're going to have an analyze option. And we can ask Power BI to explain the decrease. So let's do that. And right at the top, it's letting us know right away. Here's the analysis of the 67.28% decrease in profit between this date and this date. And it's going to give you a bunch of different visuals based off of the different fields that you have. So it's going to take all of that into consideration. So if we look at this first one here, it's letting us know that VTT and Velo accounted for the majority of the decrease among products, offsetting the increase of Paso. And you can even change these visuals as well. So maybe that visual isn't the best visual you would like to look at. And you can just go ahead and switch these. So these analyze tools are really cool with helping you visualize this data a little bit better, and it even does the work for you. And when we're done viewing this, all we have to do is click anywhere outside of it and it'll go away. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click outside of this visual so it's no longer highlighted. And Power BI is great for dragging and dropping our fields, but we can also leverage our built-in AI features to ask questions about our data. So we're going to use that Q&A feature. So we can easily add our Q&A visual right over here on the right. Or one of my favorite features is we can just double click and this will create that Q&A visual for us automatically. So double clicking anywhere inside the report will create that Q&A for you. And now in here, we can ask questions about our data. So maybe we want to know profit by country. And we'll give it a minute for it to work here. And we can see it has automatically created a clustered bar chart here. And if we wanted to, we could update our search results if we wanted to. Maybe we wanted to search top 3 profit by country or largest profit by month. We can do that as well. But maybe we want to take this a little bit further and search profit by country in a map. So we'll say in a map. So we can see it automatically creates that map visual for us. And if this is the visual that we want, there's a little button to the right of the search where we can turn this Q&A into a standard visual. So let's go ahead and do that. So it's no longer a Q&A, it is now a map. So let's just go ahead and maybe move this a little bit here and then resize this. There we are. So now we have our profit by country. So now let's go ahead and add another chart to visualize our sales by product and segment and determine which companies and segments to invest in. So again, make sure we click in the blank canvas of our report so we don't have any of these visuals selected. And in our fields pane, we're actually going to just check these boxes, and Power BI is going to create a visual for us. So let's choose sales. We're also going to choose product, and we're going to choose segment. Again, it is going to create it in a clustered column chart, but you can see all we did was just select those fields that we wanted, and Power BI created this visual for us. So now let's investigate the peso product government segment by right-clicking it, going to analyze, and finding out where the distribution is different for this segment. So we'll click on it. So then it's letting us know here are the filters that cause the distribution of sales by product for government to change the most. And again, it's going to give us a bunch of different visuals that we can look at. And inside of these visuals, we can actually filter a little bit further. So maybe instead of 11, we can switch it to 3 and even 9. Right now we're comparing proportions, but we can actually turn that off as well. And we're comparing absolute values. So you can see here again, we're using the built-in AI to help us understand our data a little bit more. And again, we'll just click out of here and click on our report so we can add our next visual, which we are going to add a slicer. So slicers are another way of filtering. So the slicer is going to be this icon right over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the first row is going to be our slicer. And then in our field, we're going to put our date. So we can drag that into our field here, or we can drag it into the visual, whatever you want. We can now see we have it by date, but we actually want to go back to that date hierarchy. So again, we click on that arrow, go to date hierarchy, and maybe we only want to see year and month. So we can get rid of quarter and we can get rid of day. So now we only see year and month. And we can move this slicer around. And you can see here we have our drop downs where we have our year and our months. And in here, let's say I just click 2013. Now my data in Power BI is only going to show me that data for 2013. Now currently inside of the slicer, we can actually select multiple values by holding down our control key. But maybe you don't want to allow that in your report. We can actually change that. So inside of the visualizations, while the slicer is selected, we'll click on the Format Your Visual. We have Slicer Settings, and right now it is multi-select with control. So maybe you don't want to allow people to multi-select with control. You can turn that off. So again, whatever works best for you. And we're going to add one more visual in here. And we're actually going to add our smart narrative visual. So the smart narrative visual is going to be this one right here. It looks like a piece of paper with a blue dot. It's in the third row, 1, 2, 3, 4, sixth down. And smart narrative, all you have to do is click it and it creates the narrative for you. So in here, it's going to give us a brief overview, snapshot of all of our data of our report. So it's letting us know profit trend is up. It's resulting in a 390.43 increase. So this is just going to be a bunch of top line information that Smart Narrative is going to create for us. And the cool thing with Smart Narrative is if we actually use our slicer and filter to 2013, our Smart Narrative is going to change as well. All right. So now that we have added everything to our report that we wanted to, let's go ahead and format some more items and finalize our report. So we're going to go back into our executive summary finance report, and we can format this a little bit further. So here on our right-hand side, we see format text box. We can click on effects, and we can give it a background color. We can also adjust the transparency as well. We can also select our visuals, and inside of effects, we can actually turn on a shadow. So if we want to add a shadow to all of our visuals so they stand out, we can just click in them and add that shadow. So you can definitely come in here and customize your visuals a little bit, the way they look. Also, inside of Power BI, there are different color schemes that you can change as well. So that's going to be in the View tab. You see here we have our themes. So maybe you want to change the way these colors are. You can come in here and change the themes, and it shows you the different colors that will be used. We also can go to the mobile layout. So maybe we want to customize our report so we can see how it's going to look on the mobile version. So now we can actually create it here. So we can add our title. We can then have our line chart. So we're basically just showing, we're creating how it's going to look on a mobile phone when someone views this report on their mobile device using that mobile application. I'm just going to drag all these in here. And then the smart narrative we'll add in here too. And there we are. So now this is how our report's going to look on mobile. We're able to customize that right here. When we're done looking at the mobile layout, we can just click on the mobile layout at the top here, and it now goes away. All right, so now we're able to go ahead and save our report here. So we can go into File, Save As, and then we can choose the name for it. So let's call this Financial Sample. We'll then click Save. And now that we have actually physically saved it to our computer, we can go back to our Home tab, and we can now publish this to the Power BI service. So let's go to Publish. We can then choose which workspace we would like to publish this to. So maybe this is a report that you're sharing with a team and you already have a shared workspace set up inside of that team. Or you just want to share it to My Workspace. And then from there, you can share it with whoever you would like. We can then click Select. Give it a minute to finish. It has succeeded. So now let's go back to our Power BI. And you can see in front of your eyes, it just loaded here. Here's that financial sample. that I just saved and uploaded. So now here's that data set. And then here is our actual report. So we can click on it, view our report. If we want to make some edits, we can do so as well by clicking on edit, and we can do so on the Power BI service. And then if we maybe want to chat inside of Teams or share this, we can share it as well. All right. So that is actually all of the content I have for today. Let's go back into our PowerPoint. And here we have our brief little training recap. So hopefully we're able to help you understand the building blocks of Power BI, help you explore the data prep capabilities of Power Query, showed you how to write formulas and model your data, how to easily begin visualizing your data and formatting a report, and at the end, how to save and publish a report to the Power BI service. So that is all the content I have for today. I'm going to touch base with my moderators. Do we have any outstanding questions in the chat that we need to cover?
Hey, Jared. Right now, we just got a question coming. Is there a framework for the best data fields to capture for the data set?
I mean, it all depends on what you're trying to do. So like for this example, there's a lot of different columns. But if you have just like a specific Excel report or anything like that, you can definitely make sure you just have the specific columns that you're looking for to create those visuals. Um, but usually visuals that have like columns that have like the numbers or the dates, locations, stuff like that will get you the best results.
Perfect. We don't have any more questions in the chat as of now. Feel free to raise your hand to come off mute. I will go ahead and post a link in the chat, and that one has a learning portal for Power BI if you want to continue learning about it. Oh, where can I access the training, the video of this training?
This training video will be shared out, and then it will be uploaded internally. I'm not sure exactly, but I know internally there is a place that these videos are being stored.
Right. And I just
So I think a follow-up to the first question was if there's like a basic template. So no, not really. There's not really basic templates here inside of Power BI Desktop.
we have one more question. When you mentioned modeling, okay. So it says, when you mentioned modeling, I want everyone to know that roles are only managed in the desktop version of the Power BI. You can't manage roles online or via Teams.
Yes, yes. The Power Query editor that you saw in all of that is specific to the desktop version as well as with the modeling. The Power BI Level 100 video, yes, it's going to be in that same channel that Sean spoke about. We already did that one, I believe, last month. So that one should already be there. Is there a certification for Power BI? I believe there is. If you go under that Power BI documentation and also under um, the guided learning inside of Power BI, there are a bunch of different courses that you can take. And I believe they also show you the certifications that would pertain to those learnings as well.
Yes, they're also in the chat saying where you can find the training videos. So the Power BI 100 was posted in the CITC general channel. And this training will be posted as well. They just published that in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. So I don't see any more questions, so I think we can wrap it up.
Okay, sounds good. So from the Microsoft team, we'd like to thank everyone for joining today. We hope everyone was able to learn something new, and we hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.